Hello, hello. Good morning. Happy Monday, August 17th, 2026. I'm Manila Chan. That be Ted Rall. You're tuned into the Ted Manila Information Show, TMI Show for short, because we bring you way too much information live Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Please be sure to hit the like, the follow, the share, the subscribe button, all that good stuff to keep helping the little show that could, because we're like squarely in the top 10 in our time slot now. Woo! On Rumble. I don't know where we're at today, but Robbie will tell us, I'm sure. And Robbie, by the way, are we doing a raid into your thing, your Putin bot gaming today?
Not today because I really can't because we have the Q&A. So just being for a stream, it really doesn't work. We will pick some other small underperforming Rumble channel and go make their day. But really the only time that I will be able to raid into Putin bot gaming will be on days where Deprogram does not have a Q&A. So tomorrow, looks like tomorrow and Thursdays, because I guess we'll be doing 3 Q&A shows now. Ted, is that correct? Monday, Wednesday, Fridays?
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's right.
Yeah, and Robbie could sure use your help when he does do the Putin bot gaming, because he needs several more unique chatters. So drop him a hate chat if you want.
It is the gayest. It is the gayest metric of metrics. And this, seriously, as much as I hate YouTube, a part of me is just like, screw it, I just do YouTube full time. That's how annoying it is.
Ugh, this is Sophie's choice, man. All right, it was horrible. All right, with that,
things to say.
Ugh, yeah.
I don't know
for
what
Robbie.
I don't know what Sophie's choice is. Explain that to me.
Oh my God.
It's from the 70s, Ted? Is that what it is? A movie?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah, it might be early 80s. Yeah.
Well, what is it?
It's about
It's a movie with Meryl Streep. Meryl Streep is a death camp survivor after World War II, and basically she's highly traumatized. And what she did, and basically it turns out that when she was in the death camp, a sadistic SS officer gave her the option of either allowing her daughter or her son to die, and she chose. And it was like, basically, if you choose one, the other one will live. If you refuse to play, they'll both die. So she chose one.
Hence, that's why people say Sophie's choice when it's a shit ass decision. That's
a horrific choice.
Well, in that case, you can't, because since Judaism is matriarchal, the choice is obvious. You off the son.
You let
because
the
it's
boy
the
die?
female. Yeah,
well, that's what she did.
Yeah,
that is what she did. It never occurred to me that this might be a religious decision.
I never thought of that either. That's true.
Well, that's how Judaism works. It passes on the line of the mother.
That.
So the men are disposable.
No, I know
That's
that.
true.
It never dawned on me about the movie. It
was sort of like, I just thought it's because she liked him better. I liked her better.
No, there's no choice at all. It's just because the line continues by the loins of the female.
I guess that would make sense in terms of the movie. All right. Yeah. Well, there you go. Happy
Monday,
funny.
It's funny. I never heard anyone explaining that. Yeah.
Well, it's one of Judaism's.
Coming from someone that's never seen it.
It's one of Judaism's dirty secrets. Honestly, no, I'll be called anti-Semitic for that.
It's not a secret.
That.
Well, it's not something that's really talked about, because it's not like that you have a choice. Is either A, you're born Jewish, but if you are, that means that your mother has to be a Jew, or you can be opted in by going through the ritual of renouncing Christ and everything else.
Ivanka Trump did.
Well, Ivanka's not her name anymore.
I don't think you have to renounce. I don't think to convert to Judaism. I've never heard that you have to renounce Christ. It's not like
that.
You 100% do. Fact check me on this.
I will.
You must.
Don't worry.
When I'm reading the next story, Ted will fact check.
Wait. I will do that. All right.
My experience literally considered converting to marry a Jewish boy, and ultimately I didn't, and ultimately the relationship didn't work. But like the mom.
Yes. No. Robbie's right.
You have to renounce.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Jesus is considered a heretic. Listen, Judaism teaches that
you must renounce your prior religious beliefs, including faith in Jesus Christ as the Messiah or Savior, to convert to mainstream rabbinic Judaism. Accepting Jesus as a divine figure or Messiah is fundamentally incompatible with traditional Jewish theology, which holds that the Messiah has not yet arrived and that worship belongs to God alone.
Correct. And so
I never got that far. So it didn't sit right with me. It just didn't sit right with me that he had asked me to, if you claim you fall in love with someone the way they are or whatever, and then you start talking about marriage and kids and you were never a practicing Jew to begin with, then you're suddenly like, well, you're going to have to laser off all of your tattoos so you can be buried at a Jewish cemetery with me. And I was like, huh? And then, yeah, you're going to have to give up. You're not a practicing Catholic anyway, so why don't you just do my stuff and convert? And I was like, but you aren't a practicing Jew, like not even high holidays. So why do I need to do any of these things? So it didn't sit well with me, and so I, decided not to. And then we ultimately didn't work out, and and his mom had a big issue with that because I was not a birth Jew.
Well, no one's a birth Jew. I mean, the genetic line doesn't even exist anymore. They're from Poland. They're Khazars. So I mean, let's just do away with the myth. The Palestinians are Semitic. They are the children of Abraham through Ishmael.
Well, that's probably true, but yeah, he was definitely what I would call a white European Jew.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and Montana native, he says, someone should tell the evangelicals, I have, and I was roundly condemned as an anti-Semite at my church for pointing out this fact that Ted just fact-checked live on the internet.
Yeah, and by the way, we should point out the president's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, meeting with Uncle Bibi today about the deal.
Gross.
Yeah, and Ivanka's name.
Old smelly.
Because once you convert, once you go through, you have to change your name. You have to put away your Gentile past.
Didn't Madonna do that? She's Esther or something?
I don't know,
yeah.
but I know that.
She did.
But Ivanka, her name is JL, and she has an interesting story. Read the Book of Judges. You want to hear about JL? She has a fondness of tent spikes in people's heads.
JL, that's her.
JL,
that's her,
Jael. That is her Hebrew name, her Jewish name.
Oh, well, there you go. The Trumps and the Kushners saving the Middle East. All right.
Or something.
In case people don't know why I'm calling him Uncle Bibi, is because the Kushner family and Netanyahu are bosom buds, and Bibi used to go crash at the Kushner house when Jared was little, and Jared used to protest because he had to give up his room to Uncle Bibi so Uncle Bibi could sleep.
Well, Bibi always with the land grabs.
So he stole Jared's bedroom whenever he was in
Jared's homeland was taken. Yeah.
So he should know. So there you go. He's brokering peace right now as we speak, meeting with Uncle Bibi. All right, let's get to the show.
Lovely.
Well, somebody's got to be quasi-family, Ted. All right. Speaking of family affairs, Ted, former U.S. Senator Kyrsten Sinema, you guys remember her? She started out as a Democrat, right, from Arizona, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
Switched into like independent. I don't think she went full Republican, but I think she went independent during her time.
Yeah, she's a weird person. Yeah.
Yeah, she dressed. I kind of like her spunky fashion and her glasses. So
it's not good though. It's definitely not a good look.
Look,
Jamal and I were talking about her just now, and we decided that, like, in keeping with the discussion you and I have had here about me and Jamal, like, we like her, we find her attractive because she's crazy. We know she's crazy.
Oh my God. She's not even like,
isn't she bisexual
lady?
She's bisexual.
I don't know.
Openly so, I believe.
I think she's like different in many ways.
I think she's omnivorous.
I don't know. I don't know that much about her sex life apart from this story.
Well,
so
we all know a lot about her sex life now. Yeah.
Now we do. And it's going to be like official on paper because not only the deposition, but anyway, I'll tell you the story. So if you don't know, the former U.S. Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona has offered a remarkably straightforward account of an affair that she had with her married bodyguard. So think of like Whitney Houston and the movie, right?
Why didn't she just lie, by the way?
So I don't know. And now their relationship could cost her more than political embarrassment to the tune of $75,000. Sinema testified in a July 31 deposition.
I hope it was good. That dick was worth it.
Jeez, man. July 31 deposition that her affair with her former bodyguard, Matthew Amell, began around Memorial Day of 2024 while the two were staying at an Airbnb in Napa, California. Well, Napa is very romantic. This is very romantic, Ted. According to the deposition, Amell kissed her outside and then they were whisked inside and then the relationship became sexual inside the Airbnb. It apparently didn't end in wine country.
Yeah.
Sinema acknowledged additional encounters in New York City. Ted, maybe you heard them. I don't know. I mean,
no, you can't hear anything with all the noise, the people yelling, between the homeless people screaming,
the cursing.
Yeah, the traffic.
They were here in Washington
honking,
D.C.
So much.
I
honking.
definitely heard noises. Definitely heard noises. It must have been her. They were in Aspen. They hooked up in Aspen. They hooked up in Phoenix.
As one does.
A lot of hooking up in Phoenix. She also testified that she knew that Amell was married and had 3 children. Okay, so I guess he was her bodyguard for several years. But Ted, I don't remember other, more famous senators or even any Congress members having personal bodyguards. So
that's it. Well, that's an interesting. I mean, you tell me. You're the DC person here. I mean, is that a thing?
No, that's why I'm like, was she at risk of? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in her personal life. Maybe a lot of people are trying to attack her. I don't know. But I have chased congressmen and women around for many years on Capitol Hill, and they're just like any other schmo walking it once they come out of the Capitol.
Yeah, they're usually by themselves. Yeah, or with an aide or whatever.
They're walking to Dunkin' Donuts like everybody else, right? Like they're just not with anybody. And yeah, if anybody, they have some 22-year-old lackey that's like taking notes and carrying their coffee for them. But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So why she has a bodyguard, I don't know. So that the details of her admitting that she knows Amell was married with 3 kids, that matters because Mr. Amell's now ex-wife, Heather, is suing Sinema for $75,000 under North Carolina's very unusual alienation-of-affection law. In layman's terms, we call that the homewrecker law. It allows someone to sue a third party accused of intentionally interfering with somebody's marriage. Sinema isn't denying the affair. Instead, her legal argument is essentially based on geography. She says North Carolina's law shouldn't apply because the sexual relationships occurred elsewhere. I shouldn't say the relationship, the sexual encounters occurred outside of North Carolina. So she's like, this is not applicable to me. You can't be suing me because I never boned your husband in North Carolina.
So in other words, she's arguing about not standing, right? She's about territoriality.
No, standing is right. She's saying she is arguing that
the state
Heather,
it's not the business of the state of North Carolina.
That's right.
Like what happens outside of North Carolina stays outside of North Carolina.
That's right. That's right. She's like, I never set foot in North Carolina. The court filings also revealed personal messages, however, between Mr. Amell and Kyrsten Sinema, including one in which Sinema told the bodyguard that she missed him. When asked whether she understood why his wife might find such messages concerning, Sinema answered yes. This is in a court deposition. So she revealed that she understood that Mrs. Amell saw the message at home in North Carolina, Ted. You see?
Well, no, she didn't acknowledge that. She acknowledged all she's saying is like, if you're saying, do you see how she might find this upsetting?
But
I mean, she should. By the way,
didn't
this is a reminder that in depositions, you're not being interviewed by Vanity Fair. It's like, and it's best to just say like, I would have said, I have no idea how she feels about anything. I don't know.
Right. Exactly. I would.
That's the correct answer.
Why are you even saying anything.
Yeah,
dumb
just shut the
Kyrsten."
fuck up. Although, having been
so-
deposed, you have to be like a grizzled veteran like me in order to know how to do that. The first time you do it, you fuck up.
Oh, well, yeah, but she's been on Capitol Hill. You should know better than to say more than you need. So you just say, I don't
Yeah.
fucking know. So here's the thing. When she slipped and was honest about that, saying like you can see why the wife would be annoyed, right, Senator? And she's like, yeah, what that gave away was that she now admits to knowing that the wife saw the text messages. So if the wife sees the text messages, where do you think she's seeing it, Ted? Probably North Carolina.
I don't read that as an admission that she knew that. She was
argument.
told by opposing counsel that the wife saw it. That's not the same thing as saying I knew that she saw it.
According to AI, I think I checked this on Gemini, that Heather has a credible case against Sinema, because it's saying it gives Heather around a 55 to 65% chance of surviving. Sinema is right now trying to get the case dismissed, but let's see. Gemini thinks Heather has a 65% chance of moving this along and not getting dismissed. And it's saying on the merits, Heather looks fairly strong. North Carolina requires her to show a genuine marital relationship existed, which she could, that Sinema wrongfully interfered with it. She can show that. And that the interference contributed to the loss of affection. Sinema has now admitted the romantic sexual relationship began roughly 5 months before the Amels separated, and she knew that Matt was married. Sinema's defense is geography, not innocence. Heather says this that the evidence has muddied the water considerably because she says Matthew received romantic communications from Sinema while he was physically at the North Carolina marital home, including the now infamous towel photograph. I guess she took a picture out of the shower and sent it to Matt in October of 2024. And it also states, "I miss you." And this was all before their formal separation. And Heather argues the predictable injury occurred in North Carolina, where the family lived. So she's saying, this is why I have standing against the senator, is because the senator knew Matt was home and she's texting anyway. And this is what's contributing to the loss of affection. So I think there's something there. I mean, obviously I'm no attorney, but I think there's something there. I would definitely let this case go on. Mostly because as a nosy reporter, I would like to hear the tawdry details.
Of course.
Of how kinky and weird this senator. I mean, you look at her and you kind of know that there's, she's not your average middle-aged woman, I'd say.
Well, what would be interesting more so than the affair would be how would this play out against some of the new abortion laws, for example. So North Carolina has effectively banned abortion. Mm-hmm. So if this law applies for wrecking someone's home, does that mean that you can be prosecuted if you are a resident of North Carolina and then go and have an abortion, say in California? Then does it matter jurisdiction? Because if one law is applicable, then so would the other one be.
Wait, how? I don't follow. So if you're a couple that's in North Carolina and the woman decides to run off to say California or New York City to get an abortion,
that's part of the argument, right? Because if this homewreckers law applies, so you're violating North Carolina law, but you're geographically not there. It's a matter of jurisdiction.
Right. So even if you're a North Carolina resident, but you traveled, let's say, to New York City,
could the state then?
Would you still be when you come home?
That's what's currently being, we're trying to figure out.
So when you come home, do you face the penalty of North Carolina law?
Correct. That would be it. And then, could they then issue a warrant and then
if you didn't commit that crime, even though you're technically a resident of that state? So
So that's the
wow,
pickle. That's the argument that they're going to try to make. Because if North Carolina wins, then that means that there's a precedent that's set. Now, I'm not a lawyer. I'm just pulling this out of my hat. But logically, that's the chain. Does the state in which you reside, does its law, it's kind of how the U.S. is able to tax you for income tax, even if you're living in another country.
I've been there. I know.
But I mean, if the U.S. government is able to do this and they don't have jurisdiction in another country, it's kind of like with Maduro. They went after him for saying, well, you own automatic firearms, you own machine guns, a violation of American
Right, which is
firearm
like
law.
stupid.
So that's the question. Where does it stop?
Like, where do you have sovereignty?
Yeah.
So, like, Kyrsten Sinema, I don't really, I don't know that I don't side with homewreckers necessarily, but as a matter of legality, like, I could see where Kyrsten Sinema could weasel her way out of this lawsuit. I could kind of see it, because you're right, Robbie. Like, what precedent would this set for not only North Carolina but also states like Texas or whatever that have these, like, for example, abortion laws, which is a hot topic, that if you travel outside of the state and then you commit something that's not a crime in California, but you return to your home state and it's a crime there, are you then still liable to those your local law?
Yeah. Or if the state issues a warrant for your arrest and they send an extradition to the state that you're currently in, are they then obligated to send you back?
Well, look, we talked about child marriage on the show a few weeks ago, that something ridiculous, like 36 states in the union still allow child marriage. So if you were married in one of these child marriage states like California, surprisingly, and then you as a 50-year-old man married to your 16-year-old bride, you're married in California and you travel to a non-child bride state. I don't know which one. Like, I'll pick, I don't know, Tennessee. I don't know if that's true. But let's say you go from California to Tennessee. Does Tennessee then recognize your child bride marriage from California?
So that's the question.
Damn, I don't know. Like, would
the answer is generally no, right? Because remember when Massachusetts was the first state in the union to give gay marriages? And
Barney Frank was at the forefront of that.
And like the thing is, many states did not recognize those marriages.
Oh.
So and it was only gay marriage only became federalized in 2011 when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in favor of one of those cases. So yeah, I would say the state law does not apply beyond the state's borders. So the question is, so here's the question, right? Did the disruption of the marriage occur? Okay, I think Senator Sinema is in legal jeopardy, and here's why. I don't think the case is about where the sex occurred. I think the key to the case is the text messages and the other communications that crossed state lines. Those communications, arguably, it's very unlikely that she never communicated with him while he was in North Carolina. All that the plaintiff would have to show is that he was in North Carolina when some of those text messages were received. At that point, the North Carolina law does apply to a communication.
That's right.
So the communication would be the issue here, not the penis and the vagina going into
because
each
other. It's not just sex that intervenes in someone's marriage, right? It could be.
In fact, you could intervene with. I think theoretically you could file a lawsuit under this statute and never have sex at all.
Right.
The person
you can
involved.
Be carrying on an online relationship,
an emotional affair, or you could be you might even just be a friend who says like, "Oh, you should divorce your wife. She's terrible.
Right.
You could just be talking shit about her and the marriage."
Right.
That would be it's basically romantic and marital version of tortious interference with contract. Tortious interference with contract is where you get involved in someone's business relationship and you fuck up their deal and they no longer get the money that they were getting before. So there's the same thing. You're fucking up their marriage. How you do it is sort of like neither here nor there.
It doesn't mean vagina. It has to be vaginal interference.
Certainly texting someone that you had sex with in the state would probably be deemed as qualifying. I think this is a very strange law, but I think as long as the law is viewed as constitutional.
Well, also think about this: your home is your home is not only where you live. There's extensions to your home. Your car is considered an extension of your home. Your personal effects, like your cell phone, your iPad, is considered an extension of your home. So, if he's in California and if he has an iPhone and an iPad, the iPad's at home. She texts him. The message pops up there on the iPad there in North Carolina. There you go.
Right, and the wife sees it. So on August 19th, there's going to be an evidentiary hearing. And it could provide more, salacious deposition material. So I think Robbie brings up a really good point that this could accidentally set a lot of precedent, because then it becomes this new case where people are like, hey, like, spouse, you fucked around on me.
The main rule is don't cheat with people from North Carolina.
Well, I guess that's one takeaway, Ted. That's one.
Yeah, like, keep your research stay away from those research triangle whores.
Well, I would just say don't be banging the people you work with or for.
No Durham dames.
No, don't be. So if anyone's married and you know that they're married, that's the thing. She should not have owned up to saying
Chapel Hill sluts.
She should not have owned up to saying, like, she shouldn't have admitted, like, oh, I know Matt's married with 3 kids. She shouldn't have said that.
Well, that was definitely an admission, right? But I mean, obviously, she admitted she boned him, right? So
I know. She's like over here, like just like talking
honestly, I don't know. I guess they had the goods on her, and she didn't want to perjure herself. So
yeah, I guess. Well, there you are. So we'll find out more.
It's so cringe. I mean, it's so cringe. I mean, honestly, between you and me, how is this anybody's business? and as for the wife, it's like, okay, what are you doing? Why are you suing her? Your beef isn't with Kyrsten Sinema. Right. Your beef is with your husband who cheated on you. Kyrsten Sinema never promised you anything and never stood in front of a congregation and promised to have and hold you. Like,
there's a little bit to do with her too. Like, I mean, if Kyrsten Sinema was a decent person, it's one thing if you make the mistake the one time, but then to keep banging your bodyguard that is married and has 3 children and is not planning on leaving his wife or nothing. Like, he's going home to his married life with 3 kids.
No, you've never had sex with a married guy.
No. What? Not once I find out they're married. I've been lied to a couple of times where I was like, hey, what's this? And that, I was a young girl in my 20s, and I learned, after 2 times that I was like, dudes fucking lie. Like, dudes fucking lie. And I ran away quick. But I never knowingly engaged with a married man.
But my point is, but still, if you knowingly do it, I mean, it's okay. It's not like the best behavior, but should you really be able to be dragged in court?
As a woman, I think Heather's rage is misdirected. I mean, for all we know, she's also angry at Matt. Maybe she's mad at Matt too.
She better be.
But I mean, yeah, she should be. But I would say the anger should be less anger towards the senator and more towards her husband. Like, I have been
the senator is not her.
I was accidentally the other
really
woman. I didn't know. I didn't know I was the other woman.
Right. But Sinema knew, of course.
But Sinema knew, and And as soon like this particular person wasn't married, but he had a child with this other woman that he never told me about. He only told me about his ex-wife and a couple kids. And then there was this other woman that he cheated with and had a baby with her at the same time that his wife had a baby. So he had 2 children from 2 separate women at the same age. I found this out all after the fact. And he was a dirty, horrible surgeon. Like
super drama.
Yeah. And then I found out, like, he was talking to me about getting married. I had no idea that this woman existed, like none. I find out that he isn't married, is just that this other woman exists, and this whole other kid, this like, child out of wedlock existed from the woman, because he was apparently picking up the kid from the woman. We didn't have plans or anything. He was just it was his turn to visit have the kid. And I guess he was still dating her or maybe, I don't know. I have no idea. We were just dating. So he, I guess, went in to use the bathroom or something, and she hops in his car, presses the GPS to see where he's been going a lot. And it was to my house. And then my number shows up and my name. She calls me on his car Bluetooth, and then I hear him running like, "What are you doing?" And then she writes down my number into her phone, hangs up,
calls you.
Hello, calls me. I hear yelling in the background, and she's like, "I'm so and so. Do you know that he and I have blah blah blah, and we have a kid together?" I was like, "Who are you?" I was like, "What?" Like, I was at the gym on the treadmill. I'm like,
you're like an episode of Real Housewives.
I'm like, who the fuck is this? What is so in my case, shit like that happens. Men lie. And I didn't know, but Kyrsten Sinema knows. Anyway, as soon as I found that out, I told him to hit the fucking road, never wanted to see him again. But then the baby mama tried to have a friendship with me.
Oops.
And I'm like, lady,
we have nothing to talk about, right?
Right. I have my heart goes out to you. I'm sorry that I got suckered into this. Like, I don't want anything to do with you crazy people. Like, God bless. Move on with your life. You can have him. You guys have a kid together. God bless.
I wonder how this North Carolina law would handle someone in your situation where you didn't know. Would it be enough for you to be able to demonstrate that you were unaware of his marital status?
Well, in my case, he wasn't married to this other woman. She was the other woman that broke up his first marriage.
But you get my point, right?
But but if he were married, someone like me that I had no clue. I was like,
I mean, I just wonder if the North Carolina law certainly shouldn't apply there.
No, but
the message here is don't fuck around in North Carolina or with North Carolina.
Fuck around and find out. Apparently, in North Carolina,
keep it down in the Palmetto State in South Carolina. Move it up to Virginia, to the Commonwealth.
Yeah. You are not immune. That's all I got to say. I bet Kyrsten Sinema did it.
She's a spicy. She doesn't look like she's so spicy, but she's, obviously she's got
crazy eyes.
She's got a hot puss, man.
She's got crazy eyes, Ted.
Yeah.
She's
probably amazing in bed.
I bet she is. She's like not a marathoner. What are those like multiple event, what is it called? What are those like? It's like you do all these different events to.
Like triathlon.
Yeah, she's a triathlete.
Oh wow, she doesn't look like it. She looks like potato-y.
No, apparently that's like more muscle. She's a thick. She's got meat on her bones, but she's apparently.
So she's totally like pounding away.
Yeah. So apparently she's like showing. That's why she was sending him pictures. That's what she said in the deposition, that she's like, I was just showing him my physique after, like my triceps, and I just happened to be in a towel.
Just happened to be, yeah.
All right.
People just happen to be in a towel. I mean, look, it could be worse. It could be Jeffrey Toobin he could have used it. He could have used a towel. Anyway, all right, let's move on here.
Go on.
What you could do, I'll just say let's not go away. No, what she could do is that she could say this is nothing more than a blatant attack by the woke Reich and the anti-Israel forces in North Carolina, because she's such a staunch defender of Israel. She could straight up play that card. She has an A+ rating for APAC.
Maybe she could say there were Palestinians in her vagina, and she needed the bodyguard to fuck them to death like they were in Gaza. Okay, here we go. So we'll continue along the same theme here. Marriage may promise love, companionship, and a lifetime together. Sex, apparently, though, is increasingly optional. New data from the General Social Survey finds that 32.5% of married American adults had no sex at all in the last year. On the other end, 4.1% said that they were having sex more than 3 times a week. Licensed marriage and family therapist and clinical sexologist Dr. Anna Elton says a sexless marriage is generally defined as having sex 10 times or fewer per year. She notes that intimacy can fade for plenty of familiar reasons: demanding jobs, children, stress, hormonal changes, and perhaps most dangerously, couples simply losing their connection. She has a prescription: put down the phone and pay attention to the person you married. Elton recommends that couples spend a week deliberately noticing what's going right in their relationship, expressing gratitude, and replacing conversations dominated by bills, errands, and scheduled with actual connection. A regular tech-free night can help as well. Then comes something long-term couples sometimes forget entirely: have a good time. Elton suggests introducing novelty through planned dates, even using an A to Z system. I don't know if this applies in Cyrillic to Russian couples. Art galleries or axe throwing for A. Axe throwing could turn dangerous. I was going to say axe throwing could turn dangerous if you're not getting along well. Bowling or the beach for B. And yes, you can still flirt even though you're still married. She recommends small physical gestures, including longer hugs and kisses, to reinforce intimacy and connection. So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, duh. That's
a lot of not
to
of
me,
no
the main
sex.
story. That's the thing, right? Like we know that young people are suffering from a sex recession. They're not connecting. But like what's, and of course, obviously, look, sexless marriages are endemic in the United States.
Also in China. I was doing some reading yesterday. Mr. Lee, probably knows about this too. In Shanghai, they said almost 25% of the city's population, which is massive because it's such a huge city, they're in what they call a dry marriage, where basically the married couple are roommates, but they never have sex. And the Chinese government is really starting to look at this because it's a major problem.
Well, because they're not making babies. And McCaden, thank you for the donation.
And you're headed toward divorce.
Sounds like North Carolina needs adultery insurance.
True.
New business model here.
So let's get back to sexless marriages. I mean, honestly, I'm glad that we have this topic. You really can't talk about it enough, given the fact that it is a huge problem, and it is like not talked about, and it's considered okay. Like especially if you're a guy, if you complain that you're not getting any sex at home, first of all, you're going to be told, oh, you should take out the trash more often and help out with the chores. And you should obviously be contributing at home. But studies have shown that actually couples that have more traditional gender roles tend to have more sex and have better marriages anyway. So that's kind of like not really true that taking out the trash more is going to get you laid more. It's really kind of not true. And the other thing is there's sort of a sense that like it's usually if the guy complains like I'm not getting any action, then like socially people are like, God, is that all you ever think about? What are you, a pig? And I mean, it's kind of like, okay, people can have problems and they can have hormonal issues and blah, 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 blah. But whether it's the man or the woman, there should be a sense that something's wrong if your marriage is sexless, and it's a problem to be fixed. Not that it's okay or normal. I think the normalization is really a problem.
But I'm gonna look. While obviously I'm not, the virginal princess that I think some of you would hope I am, as evidenced by having a kid a couple of months ago at near 50.
I assume that was the Immaculate Conception, like God. Like, I always wanted to say, like, like Joseph, like, can you imagine like Mary's conversation with Joseph? Like, so
hurry, say it, Ted. Robbie's away.
Yeah, exactly. So Joe, I got something to tell you. Well, I know we haven't been hitting it, but guess what? Good news is on the way in 8.5 months. And it's like,
we having a baby.
Like, but wait a minute. It's like, so who's the dad?
God?
It was God. Really? It was God. Yeah.
Well, I mean, stranger things can happen.
Not
Obviously,
really, but not really. Stranger things really can't happen. But yeah.
But I will say this: upon researching some of this this topic last night, obviously, sex is a big thing and needed to continue.
It's literally the most important thing in your marriage, right? Like if
you're speaking from a Westerner point of view.
If you only have sex going for you, and the sex is great, but everything else blows, like you're yelling at each other, you can't stand each other, your marriage will limp on. But if you have everything else going great and there's no sex, you will get divorced.
I was doing research on this last night, and I found a whole institute within the Yale anthropology department. There's whole anthropological research on this, and I would love to interview somebody from Yale about this. But from what I read in the research is that this is very much, you have a very Western view on the importance of heteronormative sex within any kind of relationship, married or not. And it's primarily in Western culture that the emphasis is put on sex, that on collectivist cultures, like I always say,
Wait, did you just say emphasis?
Yes.
Emphasis.
Emphasis. That's the point. Emphasis. You're missing the joke, Ted. I'm putting the wrong emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Oh my God. I need more. My coffee's weak this morning. All right.
Jeez. Thought you would get that joke.
Yeah.
Emphasis on the wrong syllable on purpose. But in Western cultures, it's a lot about, and this is all from the research I did. If you guys don't like this, you can contact the Yale people. This is like, I was looking at Yale's study on anthropology and about sex and culture, was that in Western culture, it is very much a self and a me first culture.
Mm-hmm. And
in Eastern culture, like of which I grew up in, that it's a collectivist culture, and it's less about this individual idea of using sex as a form of self pleasure, or as a hobby, or as like something fun that you do. And in Western culture, it's literally just, it's something you do for fun.
Well, yeah.
So in Eastern culture, it's not viewed that way. So it's not put on the top priority list.
Obviously, they're having plenty of sex. That's how they got 1.3 billion people in China.
Sorry, I had to shout at somebody on the other side of the door.
Okay.
So yeah, this, like in collectivist cultures, they view sex as, I mean, it's, of course it's important within marriage. And it's up there, maybe in the top 5, top 10, but it's not one of the top 1 or even 2 in collectivist cultures, where it is in Western cultures, like you're pointing out. And when I started digging down into this a little bit more, there's no irony that in Westernized cultures, divorce rates are also significantly skyrocketing higher,
because they're not having enough sex.
Much because of the importance that the way people view sex is almost like, this trivial thing. It's just there for pleasure. And when people
pleasure is not a trivial thing.
When that becomes your only source of pleasure, I would say I agree more with the Eastern view of the role of sex. It's not the first, it's not the alpha, it's not the omega. It's important, but when you're talking about marriage, the disillusion of marriage,
the Kama Sutra is from the East, it's not
families falling
like the
apart.
East isn't into sex.
No, yeah, I know, but that's my point. Is if the Kama Sutra came out of India 2,000 whatever years ago, and even they're not saying. I mean, this is a country that came up with arranged marriages and the Kama Sutra. So how do you balance that? The arranged marriages actually have a better chance of working out than the Western, an American style marriage. because of the values of in their culture of how they view family and, like stability and all things like that.
But maybe those Indian ladies be putting out and boning like crazy.
But maybe the dudes, I don't know. But either way, Asian cultures in general, not only just the Indians, I mean, you guys can look this up yourself. It makes a lot of sense, is that if your culture, like our culture trivializes sex. We over-sexualize everything. We sexualize little children, little girls. We put them in these pageants. Sex has become like this, I don't know, like this thing you put on a shelf,
like
take
the
on and
John
off.
Benet Ramsey shit.
Yeah, it's just like sex is like this novelty item that you can go pick up at Spencer's Gifts at the mall, right? Whereas
with your lava lamp.
yes,
we should move on because we have two stories left. All right,
but yeah, that's how you guys look up the divorce rates between the East and the West, and surprisingly, Ted, high divorce rates in Russia because they're kind of like they straddle between Eastern culture and Western culture. Huge, higher divorce rates than in America.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Do we know why?
Was kind of shocking to me. Like all the Eastern European blocks, they have a much higher. However, the highest divorce rate I read last night was in Portugal, I think. But that's because they have the highest rate of shacking up before marriage. And then
well, here's the thing. What they say is that basically it's because divorce is really easy in Russia.
Oh, it's
apparently filing for a divorce requires a minimal fee. There's very little red tape. If you don't have minor children, you can dissolve your marriage quickly. There's no heavy alimony, only basic child support. So it's basically like the first time. So here, a lot of couples stay together here in the United States because getting divorced is hard. So maybe people work on their marriages a little. People might be working on their marriages a little harder here in the U.S.
Whereas the Ruskies are like, yeah, you don't have any kids, so just fuck it.
Easy come, easy go. See ya.
Well, okay.
So
I guess I didn't look up. I was like,
It's a
It's
a political answer.
There you go. Well, if you know Russians, that makes a lot of sense with their personalities too.
Easy come, easy go. See ya. All right.
All right. So while Americans spent the 4th of July grilling burgers, setting off fireworks, and arguing online about whether this country is collapsing, a few dozen Europeans in Poland decided to celebrate America's 250th birthday as well, but in a different way. By pretending to be broke people in Ohio in a trailer park. Yes, really. A Polish live-action role-playing group, a LARPing group. It's called LARPing.
Fuck.
A Polish LARPing group created a 28-hour game called Broken American Dream, where players from across Europe took on the roles of struggling Americans dealing with medical bills, lousy jobs, drugs, gun violence, eviction, broken marriages, and the ever-present hope that somehow tomorrow will be better. Basically, they recreated America from what they know of Netflix. The fictional community, called Pristine Park, featured red Solo cups, cowboy hats, American flags, cheap beer, litter everywhere, and even pretend meth labs, although the meth was actually blue raspberry rock candy. Players had to hunt for jobs, scrape together rent, and navigate various disasters while remaining appropriately optimistic about their prospects. Nothing says American dream quite like hoping your favorite chemotherapy doesn't bankrupt you.
Your fake chemotherapy.
Sorry. But favorite, you have all kinds of cancers when you're American, Ted. That's just how it is.
That's true.
Healthcare was particularly fascinating to European participants. One Belgian player who had I think the real person had undergone cancer treatment, described paying virtually nothing out of pocket back home in Belgium, while others said one of the scariest elements of pretending to be American was imagining a medical emergency wiping out their savings. Gun culture also made the itinerary. A German player portraying a gangster said Even handling a prop weapon made him uncomfortable, wondering how Americans live with the knowledge that someone nearby could be armed. The entire production was inspired largely by American movies, television, social media, and books, including Hillbilly Elegy and Nomadland. Organizers say the point wasn't to mock Americans, but to explore the contradiction between America's legendary promise of upward mobility and the darker version of the country exported through our own culture, which may be the strangest part. Europe didn't invent this caricature of us, we sold it to them. So this is what Europeans, non-English Europeans, non-English speaking, think of us, Ted. And in Ohio, I mean, you know more about that than me. But is this what they think of us?
Well, I mean, there's nothing that you read that sounded like they got it wrong. I spent a semester abroad when I was a kid, when I was 12, in France. And I remember I grew up in Ohio, as you just said, and I was struck by how silly the views of my classmates, my French classmates were, and they were like, "Oh, do you have a horse?" And I was like, "No, I live in the suburbs." And they were like, "Do you live in a skyscraper?" And I was like, "How could I have a horse and live in a skyscraper? Like, would I bring my horse onto the elevator?"
They're 12-year-olds, though. So
yeah, I know. But the point is, they assume that Americans lived in New York City, or or they saw, at the time it was the 70s. There were still a lot of Westerns on TV and on film. Anyway, the point is, unlike that, this doesn't sound like the polls got a lot wrong, right? It sounds pretty accurate. This is all, look, meth and opioids are a huge problem in the U.S. All these things that you mentioned, the healthcare system is this disaster. I guess I don't really understand why on earth the polls would be interested in replicating.
Robbie, tell us.
Or why would they want to LARP this? It's all so
Robbie,
fucking depressing.
Why LARP something as horrible and depressing as this?
Would we LARP like the Afghan Civil War? Like, you're in the Taliban, I'm in the Northern Alliance. Like, no, I don't think so.
Look, Americans love Civil War reenactment and shit. I think all of that's weird.
Not the same thing.
I know a guy. You don't think so? I think that's all kind of LARPing, writ large.
Yeah, but that's not depressing.
Well, look at who it is they're willing to LARP. They're willing to LARP poor white people in America who are struggling. Meanwhile, if someone asks them to go LARP, say, some Afghan goat herding villager, it's, "No, I can't do that. That's racist and offensive." So, that's really the more interesting story here. So why is it okay to mock and laugh at poor struggling whites in Appalachia?
By the way, it doesn't sound like they're necessarily making fun of. There was literally not a single line or reference, even obliquely, to jokes or humor, or that it was satirical.
Yeah, they were saying how horrible that you Americans have to think about being bankrupt because you broke your leg or something.
Yeah, the Civil War reenactment guys, they're not making fun of it. They're just they're redoing it, right?
Yeah, no, I get it. But so both of these things can be true at one time. You have the German guy, which is precious. His ancestors, if they were able to, should come back and strangle him in his sleep for being a pussy. These are German. His ancestors were the warriors who conquered Europe. Charlemagne was German. Let's just call this thing what it is. It's like, could you imagine the fear of knowing that your neighbor might be armed? Oh my, that's so terrifying. That's up there. That's up there.
We're used to it, but it does. It is valid to think that if you were not used to it, let's say you moved from Poland to the United States, mm-hmm. It's a little spooky to think that your neighbor might have guns, and your neighbor might be an asshole or stupid or both or whatever.
Well, this guy was a German, so you would think, just 2 generations ago, right?
Yeah, they were all at war. Yeah.
Right. And there were guns ablazing everywhere. But look at where their country is at now, right? They're an economic death spiral, right? They have factories closing. They're turning themselves into a rust belt. They're overrun with migrants. No one has guns, or I don't think so anyway. Not like the U.S. by any means, but I think they're largely.
I think Germany's like France. It's like a lot of people have guns for hunting, like rifles.
Hunting, but not but
hunting's definitely huge in Germany.
Yeah, there's a lot of out in the Black Forest, I'm sure, but handguns and things like that. Like when you're a dude that can pay to go LARP, living in a trailer park. Like, I'm sure the dude has money, right? And he's probably some, liberal coming from Berlin, that's like, oh my God, this guy, maybe I'm sending have guns next door.
He should stick to his gay pride parades. And, and really at the end of the day, if the Europeans are really that concerned, what they could do is actually start funding their own militaries and stop relying on the taxpayer from Appalachia for defending them.
Well, that's true.
For supplementing their militaries, for defending them, because that's what's happening. NATO, without the United States,
who's attacking Germany?
Nobody is. That's my point.
That's the point.
But the German military is something. The entire European defense structure exists as it is right now because of the American pacifier. They don't have to invest in their militaries. Because they have the
sounds like they have it figured out.
They'll use our boys.
Yeah, it sounds like they have it. It sounds smart to me.
Yeah. So it's the Israeli model, right?
They'll use our sons instead.
Exactly. It's the Israeli model, but it's not good for us. So if the question is look at these Americans, look at how they're living. Which, by the way, I agree on a lot of it. No, my son, he's on his way to the doctor's office right now. He probably broke his foot yesterday. Got stuffed on by a horse.
Shit.
Stepped on by a horse?
Yeah, at the rodeo.
That's actually very easy to have happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean,
horses be heavy.
No, this is the last time that this is not exactly a good time to get a new medical bill. But yet here we are. And if we were not subsidizing Europe's defense and Israel's defense, defending Taiwan, and trying to be the world's policeman, running this global fucking empire that's a disaster, maybe we could invest on the poor trailer trash in Appalachia. Maybe we could start executing drug dealers. Maybe we could secure the border. Maybe we could have mass deportations. Maybe we could stop blowing up fishermen off Guatemala. Now, these are all things that we're able to do. But no, sit down, shut up, and Whitey, enjoy your fucking medicine because you deserve it because you're a colonizer.
Let these rich Europeans put a.
Still have another
I really feel like they're putting a mirror up to our culture. I really think that's what it is, and I don't think it's meant to be. I don't think they meant for it.
They're trying to I think they're trying to
be edgy.
I think they're trying to figure us out, honestly.
Yeah, these are not native English speakers. This is what they know from seeing stuff on Netflix.
Americans are mysterious to much of the world. We have this huge influence on the world militarily, culturally, socially, economically. Yeah. And they want to kind of get into our heads. I don't know. I don't think it's unreasonable.
And then you have the vice president of the United States, the sitting vice president, becoming a best-selling, author with Hillbilly Elegy, talking about his, meth-addicted mom and alcohol and all of this stuff. And so they're like, oh, wow. The vice president is from that. Like, wow.
Well, that's true.
Could someone explain to me why the Sagler family, not one person from the Saglers, people who don't know, they're the ones who brought OxyContin in and just really kicked off the opioid crisis here in this country. Why is it that not a single member of the Sagler family ever was held accountable? Why did no one go to prison?
Because they bought their way out.
Why does that family?
They bought their way out,
and that's the whole point. Meanwhile, the center of the country is being hollowed out. We're being destroyed by our own government. Meanwhile, these other countries, they're coming over. Oh, look at these rednecks. Look at how they're suffering. Hoo-hoo.
Well, they're not wrong.
Of course they're not wrong. But the question I have for the American people is, why are we putting up with it?
Well, the polls are not the problem. And I don't mean POLL, right? The POLL.
Our government is. Our government is the problem.
Our government is the problem, and we're failing to hold them accountable. Robbie, when's the last time there was a major political protest about anything in this country? I mean, there hasn't been one. The biggest protests in the last 10 years have been what? The 1.5 women's marches. I don't know, 4 No Kings marches, none of which basically were anything other than Donald Trump is fat and orange, but they had nothing to say. They didn't call for any significant change. They weren't about anything, right? When's the last time there was a major protest movement about anything? I'm going to say 2011 on the right with the Tea Party, who were complaining about, taxed enough already. That's what T stood for. And on the left, Occupy Wall Street, which was about income disparity and the domination of the 1%.
I would agree.
I mean, it's been 15 years since we saw, and these were not huge protests. I would just say a significant protest.
Yeah.
And you have to go back to
one.
You have to go back really to the 1970s. There hasn't been in our lifetimes a real protest movement in this country.
Do you know, I mean, really, I think what this just kind of shows is just how sick we are as a nature and just as a culture, as a people, as a nation. It kind of reminds me of the Opium Wars. Now, I wasn't there, but I read a lot about them. It's the same thing, that there's just a sense of hopelessness, that nothing mattered. The Chinese peasantry just sat there on their blessed assurance, smoking their opium, as the entire nation just
as the
disintegrated.
Brits were laughing their asses off.
That's what's going on here. And the meanwhile, the Chinese ruling class, the Manchus, just sitting there. Everything's fine, everyone's okay, until it wasn't. That's when the Boxer Rebellion happened. I mean, that's what's going to happen here. It's just going to be a matter of the Chinese had the advantage.
And when it happens, it will have been long overdue.
The Chinese had the advantage that they have 2,000 years of shared history. We don't have that here. When this happens, this country is going to make what happened in Yugoslavia look like a joke, and that's my dread.
Yeah, this is
I don't see any way around it, because we are choosing not to organize and hold the powers that be accountable.
One last quick story, and then we'll get out of here, because this is it's on the thumbnail.
Yeah, I got to go get ready for Q&A. For generations, graduating from college was supposed to mark the beginning of adulthood. You got your diploma, then your first job, then your first apartment. However, for Gen Z, the next step is move back into your childhood bedroom. A new clever real estate survey found that 49% of recent college grads moved back in with their parents after graduation, and nearly half who returned are still there. So among Gen Z living at home, 58% say the rent is too damn high. That's why they're stuck at home with their parents. 52% say they're more likely to move back in with their parents over the next 5 years than to buy a house of their own. I'm surprised it's only 52%. Among current college students surveyed, 33% said they'd like to own a home after graduation. And I would like to sprout wings and fly. Among recent graduates, however, only 13% actually got to do it. Meanwhile, 7% of students said they wanted to move back home, but 49% actually did it. So employment's not really helping. 34% of recent grads still don't have a full-time job. Parental assistance continues well beyond housing. Another summary of the survey found 59% of Gen Z will still receive financial help from their parents, while nearly a third said their parents pay all their bills.
Jeez.
So there you go.
The kids you went to Columbia with, Ted, that's them. Those are those kids.
Not anymore. Those are they're my age.
No, I mean, it's those types of kids. They don't change. It's the same thing. It's all the rich kids. Their parents will continue to pay their bills because that's the way it's always been.
Well, that's true.
But there is one upside to this, Ted, and this is me speaking as an Asian American. Again, like, I'm the first American born in my family, so I have probably a closer connection to, like, my family's homeland, right? Because I'm the very first American in my family. And I would say, growing up in a multi-generational household, I think I view it as better. I often joke about how with white Americans, like, that when you get old and unable to work and need a diaper, you just get shipped off to a nursing home. Whereas in Asian culture, we cherish our old people and we keep them at home with us because we owe them that as a sense of duty and respect to them, right? And that's a cultural thing because I grew up in a multi-generational home. Granted, a lot of it was because we were poor immigrants, running away from a communist war in Laos and before that in China. But I think there was a lot of upsides to that because I got to know my heritage better. I got to understand dual cultural. I had a dual cultural experience. I got to be close to my grandparents. I got to, be at home. And granted, I moved away when I was 18. I had to come back home at least once after college to reassess my life after the car business. But I think it's a good thing to have a multi-generational. I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing. I think it could be good for American culture actually, because it was only up until like the 20th century. Before that, white American culture, I mean, we're talking Little House on the Prairie, right? We're talking like the prequel to Yellowstone. That is more reflective of all cultures around the world, where you don't push off your kid as soon as they turn 18, that you're there together. The struggle is together. And that's the whole point of family. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And maybe this is a return to how the baseline of how things should be, that you should be close. Like, why should I have a kid and American culture dictating to my son that once he turns 18, he should be far flung across the country or maybe around the world from me? Like, why should that be the norm? Shouldn't it be more normal that he's close to his family? Because literally up until like the mid 20th century, it was normal across all cultures to have even your adult children at home. I think it's a good thing. It builds family values and you're in the struggle together. I don't think it's a bad thing.
Be careful, you sound like a right winger. I mean, Ben Shapiro call you a member of the woke right. What?
I don't even know what woke right means.
I don't. Can you explain this? What that means?
I don't
know
get
what it means
that.
either.
I don't know what that means.
It means that if you have views similar to me, similar to Tucker Carlson, basically, if you're the populist right, if you believe that Israel has too much influence and stuff, then you're a Nazi. You should be shut down. You should be deplatformed. You would
what
never
about
give
this
it.
family thing?
Well, because what Ben Shapiro says that you have no right to be able to grow up and live in the town in which you were born if you can't afford to do it. You have to go someplace else where you're able to. Basically, you have no roots. That's the argument.
Oh, so he advocates the opposite of what I said.
Yes. So he says if you cannot afford to be where you are, just because your family's been in that one town for 8 generations, then you should get up and you should move. You should go someplace else. You should go sell your soul to some soulless corporation. Okay. Maybe you get yourself a $5 burrito and stop
$20 burrito.
Well, he's saying that a Del Taco is only $5, so you're fine. So, but I mean,
okay. But you'll get the explosive diarrhea, cyclospora. So.
Yeah, but I mean, literally, though, that's his argument. It's like you have no right to the land in which you live, unless you're Jewish, in which case then the whole fucking world has to support you as you take Aliyah
to
back
return to the Holy Land.
Yeah.
Right,
so,
right.
But if you're some goy, enjoy your goy slop, get up, go someplace else, find a place you're able to live.
Like me looking at the bright side of Gen Z coming home to live with their Gen X and Boomer parents. I think there is an upside to this. I think,
unless to Ted's point,
your kids love you.
Well, unless you take it to Ted's point, where everyone's just on top of each other, and then you can't get married, you can't have sex, you can't have kids. Then the entire system collapses.
Well, it never seemed like a problem. Me being, ethnically Lao and Chinese, never seemed to be a problem in China. Just saying. There's a whole lot of us.
But to Ted's point, the reason why the Japanese birth rate has imploded is because they literally have no place to go because they're in multi-generational homes.
No, I
both things need to not be true at once. It's a binary choice.
No, but
either it's true or it's not.
The Japanese also work 1,000 hours a week. Like they don't sleep, so they come home and like they crash out or die at their dinner table. So like they or die at their desk most likely. Like I don't know about Japanese culture, but like in Chinese and Lao culture, like the family thing is a big deal, and it's cherished having your big extended family as close to you under the same roof, preferably, if not possible, then at least in the same town. And so you're saying Ben Shapiro would shit on my my views.
Oh, he does actively, and he on his show all the time.
Right?
Yeah, you would be considered a member of the woke right. You, Manila, would be a Nazi because because your views are outside the pale. You are a nativist, and you seem to think that your son has some kind of entitlement to the life that you currently have. Like he has no expectation to be able to use your life as a foundation to make his life better. No, that's not how this works. If you cannot afford to live where you live, to live where you grew up, then you must go someplace else. You must migrate. You must become a refugee in your own
migrated because I can't afford life in Los Angeles. As a struggling journalist at the time, I had to move way out here, take a job in DC, away from my family. Of course, after I got my life situated here and had better opportunities, thanks to RT, I got married, bought a house and all of that, bought a couple properties because of that. And I was able to move my mom and family here with me into a multi-generational home. Yep. Like, I think that's a good thing. So I did the reverse Gen Z.
But your son's not entitled to that. He's not entitled to the life that you've had. So even if he has to take
the articles that shit on that idea, I think they are propagating the idea of what you just said that Ben Shapiro thinks. Yeah. I think for us making fun of the Gen Zers that have to come home because they can't afford a home, like, you shouldn't make fun of them. I think it's actually, I think there's an upside to this.
Well, it's a societal disaster. It is a societal disaster reflecting a terrible economy, right? But it reminds me a little bit of the Waltons. The Waltons is a multi-generational household, and the show really highlights all the advantages of having 3 or 4 generations living under the same roof, helping each other, imparting wisdom to one another. But the subtext was it takes place during the Great Depression of the 1930s. And of course, this was after a time when people had already started to move away, and the subtext is they're only there because they have to be due to economic necessity, and therefore it ends up having some advantages, but it reflects a country that's in grave crisis. So the two things can be true at once. Yep. One is the U.S. economy blows, and two, multi-generational living has a lot of advantages.
Yeah, I think I agree with that, Ted. I think like, especially if you are married, right? If you're old enough to be married and whatever, I think because it's the norm in true Eastern Asian culture to be in a multi-generational household. I don't know about the Japanese. Again, I'm talking about us mainlanders. Like, your adult married kid is hooking up with their spouse. Like, you just kind of pretend it's not happening, and you wish them well. And that's not the American in me speaking. I grew up in that household. Like, my brother came along. I'm 7 years older than my brother. My grandparents, couldn't have been like, oh, how did a second kid come along 7 years later? Like, my daughter was not banging her. Again, the Mary and Joseph surprise? No, I don't think so. So, my grandparents, like, they didn't care that my mom and dad were banging. That's what people do. You're married. You should bang.
That's the norm throughout all of history. And to your point, Manila, the trap that we're falling into, that the Chinese are falling into, that South Korea is currently in, that Japan is in, is that we are sacrificing our futures for corporate profits, and we are burning our families. We're burning the future for the here and the now, chasing the power of the almighty dollar. And no society, no civilization, no culture, no nation can sustain that. The Waltons were able to make it work because they had a big house. They owned the land. They were landowners. The bourgeoisie would have put them to death for being those evil landowners. But that's why they're able to do it.
Was it like homesteader?
Yeah, they had the land, they had the home, they were able to do it, and they had generational wealth.
Yeah, didn't they own a lumberyard in the show?
Something, yeah, I don't remember, but yeah. So, like, I'm gonna say, look, for the Gen Zers that might hear this or are listening, like, I think it shouldn't even be acknowledged as like, oh, it's brave of you to like go ask your parents to move back in. No, I think it's a great thing. I think this is an opportunity for you as an adult to have a different kind of relationship with your parents, because the dynamic isn't necessarily like mom and dad, like I don't want to, you're not that kid anymore. You're a grown adult. You can have a new relationship form with your parents before they die. You have like, I wouldn't be able to sit here and do this show right now if I hadn't moved my mom into my house. Like I wouldn't. I'm so grateful that I have a multi-generational home, the opportunity to have that. And I think there could be a boon here for the culture. And it's not like my mom, didn't think my daughter just appeared out of like, like Mary and Joseph. Like she knows what's happening upstairs. Like she ain't dumb.
Then every member of the family must contribute in order to pay for a house without a 100-year mortgage in order to make that thing happen. That way, if you're going to live with mom and dad, then that means if you need to have a bigger house to be able to grow your family, then that means you've got to help pay that mortgage. It cannot just be on the parents.
Everybody pitch, like it's not equal, it's equitable. People contribute what they can. And I think that's been, how things are around the world, even in America, only up until like the mid-century, 19 somethings, like 50s and 60s, that did going away become the norm. It really wasn't the norm before that. So
it's because of corporate jobs, the interstate.
That's
it's
right.
It's
because they convinced young Americans that that's what they should do. They sold it to us in magazines that you should abandon your parents, you should abandon your elderly parents and grandma and grandpa, papa, or whatever, that you should come work over here in Wall Street. That this is the
it started out
thing,
like coming to the city 100 years ago and work in a factory, or 150 years ago and work in a factory, right? Yeah.
Right. Like this is like leave what you know, leave your family, leave your town, because you're a loser otherwise. That's what they marketed. And it's worked, but I think it's now
it's also fiercely capitalistic, right? Like look out for yourself. Don't share, which is what socialism is. Don't share.
So it's backfired. It's backfired now, and we've come full circle to where Gen Z, we're at the end of the alphabet here. Z, we're at Z. We're gonna start all over, and I don't think that's necessarily.
Well, also another thing it shows, and we'll go away with this because I know we're starting to run over. It's really one of the failures of feminism, being married to capitalism, whether it is, because women are the backbone of the family. If the woman is at a cubicle for 8 to 12 hours a day, whether you're in Shanghai, Tokyo, Seoul, or Boston, what happens to the family without that glue? It doesn't exist. That's what I'm saying, that this is a social pathogen that's infecting the entire world, and corporately, human beings need to stand up and say no more of this. Family is more important than corporate profits.
Yeah, I agree. It's just a lot of America's like social ills stem from what the younger generation sees on their phone with, like, they have FOMO, they see Instagram, they see whatever of everybody living their best life. It's all bullshit. But still, they have this image of like, oh, I should be 22 years old and be on my own private jet. That's just not the reality. It's all made to take families away from one another and go be a slave at some XYZ corporation.
The goal is to destroy the family.
To destroy the family, be a tax mule, and buy expensive healthcare. Because then when you eventually die by yourself and have your cat eat you, just be that's what makes you a modern civilian American, pillar of the community, Ted. You just
it's my privilege to know that my cat will eat me someday. I live to serve.
He's a fine cat. He's a fine, beautiful cat.
And he needs to eat my eyes in order to keep his coat lustrous.
So I don't know. I'm look, Gen Z, don't feel bad. I know the economy's shit. I know like the boomers handed you a fucked up outlook, and it's not what you expected. But I hope the Gen Zers, because I mean, really, I'm old enough to be a mom of a Gen Zer. I have friends who are parents, my age, who have kids in their 20s that are Gen Z, and I would say look at this as an opportunity to have a new relationship with your family and build a new America where you're not chasing the almighty dollar, and that maybe you remember that family is important. Maybe start there, and then I don't know, see what happens. Like maybe your mental health will improve.
Maybe.
How about that? Maybe. I think so.
I mean, profit in healthy people.
I'm a big fan of the multi-generational home.
Yeah, but
I hated the nuclear family. I hated the fact that my grandparents lived in France and Chicago, and I lived in Ohio. I didn't like that,
Ugh, that I can't even imagine. So, I'm so grateful my kids will know, we'll have my mom and my stepdad. My dad passed away many years ago, but I love that they can have a direct connection to the old country and our culture, and it won't die, and maybe I'll have that opportunity too. Like my kids are Gen Alpha, so maybe I'll have that opportunity. I think it's a boon. I hope Gen Z finds the bright side to this. I don't think it's shitty, but maybe you're later in your generation, you guys will be in a better position, just not right now. So take this opportunity to get to know your parents as adults. Like try to be adults
this
together.
feels like, I will say, this does seem like more of a permanent than a cyclical trend. Like with AI, nobody knows, but it does feel like
AI is stealing all of Gen Z's. Yeah, AI is stealing all of Gen Z's like entry level white collar jobs. So I don't think it's a bad thing. All through history around the world, living with your family is the norm.
True.
So there you go. Anyway, happy Monday. Like take heart. Be nice to your folks, and the folks, have a heart to heart with them. So anyway, adios amigos. I guess
Ciao.
From your new what am I called, Robbie? What are these?
You are woke Reich.
Woke right. Woke right.
Reich.
Oh,
like, like the Third Reich.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought it meant like right hand.
No, they're
Reich?
calling you
Woke.
Yeah, Reich. They call
Reich.
you a Nazi. What you do with a Nazi, Manila?
Oh.
That's why Mark Levin and Laura Loomer and these other sadistic
hate me.
fuckers. That's why they say this. You don't talk to Nazis. You don't negotiate with them. You don't platform them. You hit them or you kill them.
Woke right.
That's the point. Woke Reich.
Oh, that's lame. These idiots. Well, whatever. They can go die far and alone from their families. And
it was coined. It was coined by Benjamin Netanyahu when he was having a meeting with a bunch of influencers last year after Charlie Kirk's death. He's the one that said woke Reich, and it just stuck with Republicans.
I thought they were saying woke right, like right hand.
Woke Reich, R-I-C-H, Reich. You are a Nazi.
R-E-I-C-H, Reich.
Yeah, Reich. Woke Reich.
Okay. Oh, this whole time when I heard them say it, I thought they were saying R-I-G-H-T, like the part of the conservative right.
Right.
They're calling everyone Nazis. Okay.
You don't talk to Nazis. You kill them. Ted, you're French. What do you do with a Nazi?
Kill him.
There you go.
Lame.
That's the point.
Lame. The Ben Shapiros and Larry Loomers, whatever. Bye, everybody. Happy Monday.
Bye.